Hi there. Here in Australia, banks just love to play with you and your money. I'm sure it's the same the world over. I'd like to begin today with a story. Let's look about 20 years ago. We lived in simpler times then, where companies still made some sort of effort for your custom. Breakfast cereals had you rummaging past the newly opened pops in search of the toy. The customer was always right, and I got a small, cheap, nifty calculator just for opening a fee-free bank account. That was about the same time that ATMs began to appear on the scene. Banks, of course, sold it as another way to service their customers and a way to get cash when the banks were closed. But there seemed to be a dissenting voice to all this. Now, I've done some research, but couldn't find online the name of the fellow who shouted down the introduction of these machines in Australia. But that person was lambasted by the media for stating it was only a matter of time before we'd be charged just for using them to have access to your own money. How right he was. So here we are today, and I must admit to being confused about ATM fees. I know it's free to withdraw money from my bank's own ATMs, but I'm not sure about if I withdraw from another bank's ATMs. I know they used to charge a fee of about $2.50, and that it's been higher in the past to as high as $5. But since the banking commission that was done recently, I think they've waived it. I would of course go in and ask them, but they closed my local bank branch about a month ago, so I have to drive about 30 minutes or spend time navigating an automated phone maze to get that particular piece of information cheese. And besides, they'll only change their minds as they have done in the past, and flip to charging or not charging respectively again, just to confuse everyone. So I take cash out when my job takes me near one of these ATMs, and use my PIN and card to pay if I have to. Not the best solution, as I prefer to pay cash for anonymity. I know some would automatically become suspicious of that sentence, but I'm doing nothing shady. I just believe what I'm spending where should not be in someone else's database that could be sold to no benefit at my end, or worse, stolen by hackers, who seem to be breaking into everyone's databases these days, from Sony to telecoms to, well, indeed, banks themselves. And they only really own up to this when pressed as to why the accounts are not working. You can bet your bottom dollar it happens more than they admit. Already I get a nifty pie chart when banking online that states with pride, here's where you're spending your money. And it's handily split into bills, food shopping, clothes, etc., because they know as soon as you spend it in a retailer which part of the pie it's in. Whenever I transfer money online, I always put it as bills, and swear I'm doing myself a disservice with a massive bill slice at the end of the month. If I ever want to get a loan, I'm stuffed. Sorry, Mr. Message, your bills are way too high. You wouldn't be able to repay that amount, but I only need the loan in the first place to pay your ATM fees, and so on. So I was tossing up the idea of changing banks to the only one that's left in my local town. I popped in to inquire about opening one, and rather than have someone dash out to hungrily grab my details, I was informed the account manager was busy and could I pop back later. Now, this is a rural area, so it's not like the gaggle of staff they have in the city. There are only 2 people here, but I must admit grumbling under my breath because as I was leaving I caught sight of this lady through the glass wall to the interview room, sitting on a desk laughing and drinking a coffee while playing with her hair, as a man in a suit sat at the desk that I can only think of was her area manager, as no one wears a suit in this town. Now, in Australia, you need what is known as 100 points of ID to open a bank account. Even if you have one with another bank, they can't just transfer your stuff. You have to bring in a passport, driver's license, bill in your name at your address, medical card, basically as many forms of ID required to reach this figure to prove you're not a money launderer. So when I eventually find myself with spare time to go in again, I ensure I have these with me. Now, unfortunately, before I sign on the dotted line, I'm told I should have my wage paid in, as I need to show at least $1,000 going into this account each month. Otherwise, there is a $5 fee for every month it's under this as an account keeping fee. Now, this irks me. It costs them nothing to have another account on hand. In fact, as long as it's in credit, they're able to earn more interest than I could dream of getting on anything I have in there. The reason for this fee, of course, is to make sure that this is your primary account so they can be assured of a minimum amount to get their interest on, and to keep away riffraff. If you can't shuffle money in and out from one account to another to make this up, if you're, say, a very low-paid part-time job person, you're going to be penalised just for having an account with them. Now, I can assure you there were no fees at the beginning of my working life, but I also remember my first paychecks were cash in a brown envelope, so I didn't touch the banks, unless you wanted to put them in there. When banks became the only way to get paid and cash pay was stopped, that was the beginning of the end. Now government get their taxes and banks get their fees, pretty much guaranteed. There is no real reason for this, of course. We all know by now the fractional reserve banking. You put in, say, $10, the bank can lend out, say, $100 with that as collateral, and they could earn as much as 20% or more on that $100 because it's lent out on a credit card. And while the banks get $20 interest, you are getting a fraction of $1, and that's for funding the whole debacle. Nice work if you can get it. So the bank's profits go higher and higher, and your savings dwindle or get eaten up with fees. Now recently I saw an excellent YouTube channel by the name of Walk the World, which is run by Martin North of Digital Finance Analytics. He's recently delved into the fine print of Australian banks to see what would happen if there was a failure in the banks of Australia in case of another crisis. And what he found was that deposits in our banks are in actual fact classed as unsecured loans. In other words, if the banks went belly up, your savings could conceivably be used to pay outstanding debts before you even had a crack at getting them. I don't doubt it's probably the same the world over. Therefore, your money while in the hands of the banks is not your money. Which begs the question, with such low interest rates, why have money in there at all? It's less of a risk in your own hands in an unstable economy. I mean, the arguments against cash are stupid. It's not safe, you might have it stolen. Well, sure, but my cards might get stolen as well. And with this tap-to-pay stupidity, it's almost as bad depending on the amount of cash I've got in my wallet. They might say it's used to avoid paying tax. Well, payroll tax has already been taken out. And even if by chance I get it by another means, someone else has already paid tax on it. And when I spend it, the sales tax is taken again anyway. Arguments like this just don't work. Sure, a small amount of tax might be missed, but really it's going to be very tiny in the scheme of things. Which brings me to the title of this video. When cash is gone, you are done. In other words, the door will be closed on your prison completely. Imagine what can be done if this happens. If everything's consolidated into the bank's hands, your information on every purchase is tracked. The time of day, what you bought, where you bought it, what you bought with it at the same time. What credit risk are you? Do you bet? How much alcohol do you buy? How might this affect your health insurance? When you have a yard sale and you have to use their app, are you making money that could be taxable, etc.? And so the list goes on. Now think about the reverse. What if the bank got hacked and your data stolen? Someone now knows how much you earn, where you might be during the day, and so can work out when you are least likely to be home. Does he buy dog food in case we break in and get mauled? Has he purchased an alarm system, a gun? I mean, this stuff would be priceless to a security agency too. And don't think the undesirable can't find a way to fence your stuff for things other than money in a bank account. Now what if the banks go down? How do you buy stuff? What if the bank fails completely? Now you're completely broke. These scenarios are not outside the realms of possibility. I know someone would be screaming, what about Bitcoin or other cryptos? Well, that's where the black market would work for selling your stolen stuff, I guess. I like the idea of cryptos, but still have this nagging voice that says it's too good to be true. After all, there are so many ways to derail it if they wanted to. It sounds extreme, but with an infinite bank money supply of fiat, banks might slowly buy a massive amount and then sell it all off suddenly in one fell swoop to drop the price substantially, like gold and silver. How about outlawing purchases in crypto? How would you buy that loaf of bread? Once everything goes the way of China, how about loss of electricity and travel rights, if found to be using cryptos? Okay, I'm getting more into a theoretical fantasy here, but don't think things like this won't be done in another 5 to 10 years. The point is, once you can no longer use a commonly agreed upon medium of exchange how you wish, and bartering is taxable as it is in some Western countries, already it seems you'll be wholeheartedly at the mercy of the system, who will have everything they need to keep you in line at every turn. And you can bank on that.